Okay, so after our in-cab inspection, we're gonna do our exterior pre-trip inspection. So I'm gonna always start at the front of the truck with my first system, front of the truck. We're gonna do 3 L's, leans, lights, and leaks. So I'm gonna start with my lights. I'm gonna inspect all of my lights, lenses, and reflectors to make sure they're all securely mounted. They're not broken, cracked, or damaged. They all work properly, and they're all clean, and they're the color of amber in the front and on the sides of the truck. My headlights are securely mounted. They're not cracked or damaged. They work properly, and they are clean and clear color on the front. The next thing is leaks. I want to make sure that we're not leaking of any fluids on the ground underneath the engine or transmission area. Just anything to indicate a leak. So that's what I'm looking for. And leans. I want to make sure that the truck is not leaning from side to side, which could indicate low tire pressure or a suspension problem. All right, so we're gonna get under the hood now. Pop both latches. And I'm gonna start with my oils. Or all my fluids. That's my next system, fluids. So I'm gonna start with my engine oil. I'm gonna check the dipstick. It's at an adequate level above the fill mark. I'm gonna check my power steering fluid. With the dipstick, it's at an adequate level above the fill mark. I'm gonna check my engine coolant level, which is on the other side over there. This truck does not have a sight glass, so I would pop the cap with the engine off and cool and make sure that I am at an adequate level above any fill mark. The next fluid I want to check is my fuel. I'm not actually checking the fluid, but I'm checking the tank. So my fuel tank on both sides are securely mounted. They're not damaged, they're not leaking. My cap is secure, it's tight, it's not leaking. Now I don't want to get ahead of myself, so I'm going to come back to the engine. I want to get my 4 engine components. I'm going to start with let's go over here and start with my alternator. So this is my alternator. I want to make sure that it's securely mounted. It works properly. It's not damaged, and it's belt driven. And I want to mention that the wires on the back of the alternator are securely fastened, the electrical wires. Now, I said it's belt driven, so I want to inspect all my belts. All my belts are secure. They're not missing. They're not cracked, damaged, frayed, no loose wire fibers. And I would make sure that I have between 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of deflection when pushed by hand. Not too loose, not too tight. Okay, the next thing I want to inspect because remember we have 4 engine components. So I did the alternator. Now I want to do I'll do the water pump. The water pump is down here, right here. My water pump is securely mounted. It's not damaged, it's not leaking, it works properly, and it is gear driven on this truck. My power steering pump, same thing. It's going to be securely mounted, not damaged, not leaking, it works properly, and it is gear driven. We'll go to the other side of the truck. All right, we are going to inspect the air compressor pump. Air compressor is securely mounted, not damaged, not leaking. It works properly, and this air compressor is belt driven. And I will inspect all of my belts on the engine like I previously did. Let's see here. That is all 4 engine components. At this time, with all of my pumps that I just inspected, I want to point out that I'll inspect all of my hoses on my engine components, that they're all secure, they're not damaged, and they're not leaking. Okay, now I'm going to work my way back on this truck. I'm going to do my steer axle. I'm going to start with my steering system, okay? My steering system from my steering wheel to my wheel. I'm going to inspect the steering shaft, arms, links, sockets, and joints in the whole system. I want to make sure that they're all secure. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. We're not missing any nuts, bolts, or cotter pins. And they're not loose or worn. And properly lubricated. I don't think that that's in the book, but I can't help but to mention that because I want to make sure that they're properly lubricated. The next thing I want to mention is my steering gearbox. The steering gearbox is securely mounted to the frame. It's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. It's not leaking. And again, I'm not missing any nuts or bolts or cotter pins. The hose. I have already mentioned my engine hoses, but again, I want to make sure the hose to my steering gearbox is secure. It's not damaged, not leaking. So that's my steering system. Next is my suspension system. So we're going to start with the hangers. The leaf spring hangers are securely mounted. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. Not missing any nuts or bolts. From there we go to our bushings. The bushings are secure, not damaged, not missing. Next is our leaf springs. The leaf springs are secure on both ends. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. They're not shifted. They're not missing. Next is our U-bolts. Both of our U-bolts are secure. They're not damaged or missing. And our shock absorber is secure, not damaged, not leaking. That's our suspension system. Now we'll go into our brake system. So our brakes, starting from our brake hoses and fittings, we're going to pair everything up in our brake system. So hoses and fittings are securely mounted. They're not damaged or leaking. And I want to mention that our air hose supplies air to the brake chamber. Okay. Now we'll move on to the brake chamber here. The brake chamber and clamps. I also call it a brake can and clamps. So the brake can and clamps, they're securely mounted. They're not broken, cracked, damaged. There's no dents, and we're not missing any clamps around them. From there, and also we're not leaking out of our brake can. From there, we got our push rod and slack adjuster coming out of the can. They are both secure, not missing any pins or cotter pins. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. And I would check my brake adjustment with the slack adjuster. With my brakes released, I'll make sure that I don't have more than 1 inch of pull when I pull the slack adjuster by hand. But the brakes have to be released to do that. Okay, from there we move on to our brake linings and drums. I just want to make sure that they're all secure, not worn dangerously thin, and not damaged, and we have no oil or grease or debris in our brake linings and drum area. From there, we're going to move on to our wheel system. So our tread depth on our steer axle has to be a minimum of 4 30-seconds, and it can be a minimum of 2 30-seconds on all rear axles. So again, 4 30-seconds on the steer axle. I want to make sure that our tread is evenly worn and our tread and sidewall is not cracked or damaged. From there, I'm going to go to my wheel. The wheel is secure. It's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. There's no holes in it, and there's no illegal welds on my wheel. My valve stem is secure. It's not damaged or missing, and it's not leaking. And the cap and valve stem, I will check my tire pressure with a tire pressure gauge, as opposed to a can opener or something like that. My lug nuts are all secure. They're not missing, they're all tight, and they're not cracked or damaged. And I want to make sure that I don't have any shiny threads or rust trails that would indicate a loose lug nut. I also want to make sure that the holes around my lug nuts have no cracks radiating from them, and that the holes are not distorted or wallered, which would also indicate loose. Next, I want to inspect my hub seal. On this one, I don't have a sight glass, so I just want to pop the cap to make sure that it's at an adequate level and we have no leaks. Next, we're going to do our steps and catwalk. Anywhere that I step on the truck, I want to make sure that they're all secure. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. They're solid, and there's no slip hazards like oil or grease. From there, I will get my door area. My door, I'll make sure that it latches properly. The hinge right here is all secure. It's not broken or damaged. And my seal is intact, not damaged. And again, latches properly. I already did my fuel tank, so from there, I'm gonna come back here and do my, I'll do the chassis frame, the tractor frame now. So the frame, that's the longitudinal frame rails on both sides. They are secure. They're not bent, broken, cracked, damaged. They're not twisted. And there's no illegal welds or illegal holes on my frame. Next, I will do my drive line. You can see that in here. I want to inspect my drive line and the U-joint. Kind of hard to see. Here's the U-joint. My drive line and U-joint are secure, not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. They're not twisted, and there's no debris or foreign objects wedged in my U-joints. Let's see, from there, what do I want to do next? I'll do my cross members of the frame. That's these here. I'll make sure that the cross members are all secure, not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged, and they're not missing. I'll go ahead and do my connections since I'm here. So I'll start with my electrical cord. That's the green one here. I'll make sure that the electrical cord is secure on both ends and in the locked position. And I want to make sure that since it's electrical, I want to make sure that it's not cut, torn, no melted wires, no frayed wires, no exposed wires, just pretty much anything that could go wrong with an electrical cord. And next I'll do my airlines. My red trailer, which is the emergency or supply line to my trailer. The blue is the service brakes for the trailer. I don't have to mention that, but this is an instructional video. So both of my air hoses, they're secure on both ends in the locked position, and I want to make sure they're not leaking on both ends. I want to make sure that the hoses are not cut or they're not kinked. They're not bulging, they're not damaged in any way, and they're not leaking. I want to talk about my glad hands right here. Again, I mentioned they're not leaking. I also want to make sure that the rubber seals between the glad hands, oh, they're tight. The rubber seals are intact and not missing and not leaking. And again, my glad hands are in the locked position. All right, back to the truck here. I'm gonna do my drive axle. So I'll do my suspension system. These are all like items. So I'm gonna start with my hangers, just like I did in the front, but I'm not gonna give you inspection words. So my suspension hangers, my bushings, my leaf springs, my U-bolts. I don't have shock absorbers, so I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna inspect all of that the same way as I did on my steer axle. But the difference with this is I have a torsion spring. So I will go ahead and inspect that since I don't have that on the front. It's securely mounted. It's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. It's not shifted or missing. And the bushing is, again, secure, not damaged, not missing. Now I'm gonna move on to my brake system. The brake system, also like items. So and I'm gonna pair everything up. So my hoses and fittings, my brake can and clamps, my push rod and slack adjuster, my brake linings and drum. I'm gonna inspect the same exact way as I did on my steer axle, but the difference is my drive axle here, the brakes have a dual braking system. It has spring brakes in there. There's nothing more to inspect. The next thing I am going to inspect, well, my tire and wheel system. So I have dual tires back here. So I want to inspect that system. I want to make sure that my duals are evenly spaced. There's no objects wedged in between. And the bud spacing down here is secure. No, they're not rusted through and they're not damaged. From there, I'm going to do my tire and wheel system. So, like items, so my tread, again, I mentioned earlier, a minimum of 230 seconds on all rear tires. So my tread, sidewall, wheels, lug nuts, cap and valve stem, and my hub seal, I want to inspect the same as I did on the steer axle. No difference. Let's see here. I want to inspect any mud flaps that I have on the truck and make sure they're secure, they're not damaged, they're not missing. Now I'm going to inspect the lights on the rear of my truck. I want to make sure that the lights are all secure, not damaged, cracked, broken. They work properly and they're the proper color of red in the rear. All right, so I'm going to move on to my coupling system now. I'm going to talk about my fixed fifth wheel. Okay, so my fixed fifth wheel, it is, I'll start with my my mounting brackets. Actually on this one, the base is one piece with the mounting brackets. So I'm gonna inspect my base and mounting bracket all together. We're securely mounted, not missing any nuts or bolts. It's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. I'm gonna move up to the pivot pin right here. The pivot pin is secure, it's not damaged or missing, and it's properly lubricated. I'm gonna go to the skid plate, the big horseshoe skid plate. It's securely mounted to the base, and it's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged, and it is properly lubricated. And on the other side of the truck is my release handle. I want to make sure that it's in the locked position if I have a trailer on. Let's see, from there, I want to go to my trailer apron and make sure that there's no gap between my apron and my skid plate. I want to make sure that my trailer apron is secure, and really there's just no unintended holes in it. It's just a big flat plate. So from there, our kingpin is bolted to our trailer apron, or it's welded, I should say. So I want to make sure our kingpin is secure, no broken welds, and it's not damaged. And it will also be properly lubricated since it comes in contact with the skid plate. Lastly, on my coupling system, I want to talk about my locking jaws. I can see those through here, and I want to make sure that my locking jaws are working properly and they're locked around the shank of my kingpin, and everything is lubricated properly. All right. So I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss anything real quick. Let's see here. I'm gonna move on from there. Okay, so we're on the trailer now. Most likely a different trailer than we test on, but still all the same principles. So my trailer, I'm gonna start in the front. I'm gonna start with lighting. I wanna make sure that my trailer lighting on the front of the trailer is all secure, not cracked, damaged, or missing. They work properly, and they're gonna be the proper color of amber on the front or sides of the trailer. I'm also inspect my reflectors and my DOT reflective tape on the trailer, that they're all securely mounted, not damaged or missing. Okay, coming down the trailer here, we're gonna do our landing gear. 3 sections of our landing gear. We're gonna check the mounting brackets of our landing gear are securely mounted, not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. And then we're gonna check our release handle. I wanna make sure that it is in the stowed position and the release handle is not damaged or missing any hardware. Next, we will check our landing gear itself. We wanna make sure it's in the fully raised position. And we also want to check our landing gear pads or feet to make sure they're secure, they're not damaged or missing, and there's no debris wedged in there. Okay, so that's our landing gear. If we had a box, a cargo box or a toolbox on the trailer, we would just check that the door latches properly and that the box is secure, not damaged, and that it's solid. From there, we are going to check our trailer tires. In this case, we're not inspecting the drop axles, we're just inspecting the trailer tires that are in contact with the ground. So they're all like items because they're all identical. So we're just going to inspect one, and the rest are just like this one. So, but I also want to point out that this axle is going to be a like item to the drive tire of the truck as well. So I'm going to start with suspension. My hangers, my bushings, my leaf springs, my U-bolts are all going to be inspected the same as my drive axle, with the exception of I have a adjustable torsion rod or arm on this, so I will inspect that. It is securely mounted, not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged, not missing any nuts or bolts, and the bushing is secure, intact, not damaged, not missing. That's my suspension system. My brake system, the hoses and fittings, the brake can and clamps, the push rod and slack adjuster, the brake linings and drum. I'll inspect all the same as I did on my drive axle. My tire and wheel. I don't have duals here, so just my tire and wheel, my tread, sidewall, wheels, lug nuts, cap and valve stem, and hub axle seal. I'll inspect the same as I did on my drive axle. That's my suspension, brakes, tires, and wheels. Come back here to the back of the trailer. I'll check all of my trailer mud flaps to make sure that they're secure, not damaged, not missing. All my lights on the rear of the trailer, I want to make sure that they're all secure, they're not damaged or cracked, and they work properly, and they're the proper color of red in the rear and on these corners here. And again, my DOT reflective tape, I'll make sure is secure and not damaged or missing. So that is everything on this particular truck and trailer. That concludes my pre-trip inspection on this truck.